Once upon a time in a kingdom far, far away, there was a beautiful princess who got married at the age of just 6. And you won't believe me if I told you her horrifying story. Well, then let's begin. It all started when the king and the queen were celebrating their 10th marriage anniversary. They decided to throw a huge party, inviting all the neighboring kingdoms. The king had invited the king of Darkwood and his son, Prince Alasta, to the party. Prince Alasta was quite older than the king's daughter, Princess Elara. He was 26, and she was just 6. But he didn't think much of it because she was the most beautiful girl he had ever seen. He felt an instant connection with her and wanted to marry her. At first, the king and the queen were against the idea of getting their 6-year-old daughter married to a stranger more than twice her age. But Prince Alasta insisted that he would treat her like a princess and love her for the rest of his life. He promised the king and the queen that he wouldn't consummate the marriage, which made them agree to it on the day of the wedding. The whole kingdom was decorated with flowers and lights. All the nobles and dignitaries from around the kingdom had gathered to celebrate the wedding of the young princess. Everyone was excited to see who the king and queen had chosen for their daughter as hand in marriage. When Princess Elara made her grand entrance, everyone was shocked to see that she was only 6 years old. People started to whisper and gossip about the wedding, but no one dared to speak up against the king and queen's decision. The ceremony went on as planned, and the young princess was married to Prince Alap. After the ceremony, the king and queen gave the newlyweds a tour of the castle and then left them alone in their chambers. No one knew what happened next, but soon screams and cries were heard from inside the room. As the night went on, more and more screams were heard, and in the morning, the king and queen were horrified to find out what had happened. You might be wondering, what did the prince do to the poor little girl? Well, let me tell you. When the king and queen entered the room, they found the young princess lying on the floor in a pool of blood. She was barely breathing, and her eyes were wide with fear. The sight that the king and queen saw was truly horrific. The once beautiful and joyful wedding chambers were now a scene of a crime. The king immediately ordered for the royal physician to be summoned, but it was too late. The princess was already dead. When the king confronted the prince, he couldn't believe what he was hearing. The prince claimed that he had only married the princess to protect her, and that he had no intention of harming her. But the king wasn't buying it. He ordered for the prince to be locked up in the dungeon until they could figure out what had happened. As the investigation went on, it was revealed that the prince had actually taken advantage of the young princess on their wedding night. He had done terrible things to her. And when she had screamed for help, no one had come to her rescue. The king and queen were heartbroken to learn the truth about what had happened to their daughter. They had trusted their own person, and their carelessness had cost them their child's life. The prince was brought to justice, and he was sentenced to death by the king. The people of the kingdom were outraged and demanded that the prince be punished severely. In the end, the king decided to behead the prince in front of the entire kingdom as an example to others who might want to harm his daughter. After the execution, the king and queen took a vow to never make the same mistake again. They knew that they had failed their daughter, and they were determined to honor her memory by being better parents to any future children. The people of the kingdom mourned the loss of the young princess, and a shadow of sadness fell over the kingdom. And that is the horrible story of the princess who got married at the age of just 6. If you want to hear more such stories,